lot of what I'm going to say, I think, is going to connect up to what we've been talking about this morning, particularly about mission of education, because I think at the core of all this conversation is we're misoriented, fundamentally misoriented, in terms of what the intention of education is. Right? And the other thing that we haven't been doing very well, I think, is bringing the participation in. That it's not just a brain, it's not just a machine, it's a human being, and the being has to participate. And it's the quality and health of that participation that has to be, I think, the kind of central organizing principle. One of the places that this started for me personally was to realize that not only do I learn, I am learned. There may be some aspect of myself that's beyond what I've learned, but I can't say or think or know anything about it that's not been influenced by my learning. How we think, what we think about, it's all learned. Learning isn't just this utility for acquisition. It's the way that we become more present and extensive in the world from the time we're born. We are born learning oriented. We come into the world wired up to learn our way into the world. Nobody has to teach us how to do that. We come that way. It's our instinct. It's our nature. It's what makes us, as we'll touch on with the anthropologist in a few minutes, it's what makes us human. You can see the baby's kind of gravity surfing right there, right? It's sensing the edge of its own experience live, right now, not later, right now, right on the edge. It senses itself start to fall, and it is the differentiating the sense of falling and moving so as to not fall that propels walking. It's not some kind of computer-like little script that's being run. You could say unhealthy learning could have one of two forms. One form is that it's resulted in learning, in the noun sense, possessed learning, infrastructure, knowledge, skills, routines that aren't very efficient, that don't work very well in scaffolding fresh new learning. So one part's kind of cognitive, mechanical, and the other part is emotional avoidance. And either one of those things is dangerous. 10 times the number of kids who have innately, biologically ordered learning difficulties have learning difficulties that are a consequence of what they learned. And until such time as we can read that space really well, it comes back to mental lenses, until such time as we can read the emotional learning disabilities going on in a child, so that we can engage them in a way to work them through that, until such time as we can read where they're cognitively going askew relative to what they've learned in the past, then our teaching is kind of brute force against this deep core stuff that's working against us. Neuroplasticity basically means the freedom and flexibility to learn, to change, to not be mechanically rigid or constrained, unable to move and change. So when we talk about plasticity of the brain, what we're talking about is the brain can learn there. Children go through a period when they first come into the world where they're completely wide open to learning. The first thing that I would argue and advocate for everybody who works with people directly in the learning to read space is learn to sync up with them. Don't try to teach them through a model that actually creates a distance between you and them. Don't throw a protocol at them. And that if you want to sync up with them, the first thing you got to realize, and you got to experience first person, rather than inferentially, because so-and-so said, the first thing is to realize that every start, stop, hesitation, stutter in the flow of their voice has a direct correspondence to a section of the code that their brain is stuttering in the processing of. And the more that sync between those two is actually first person clear to you, the better that everything you know about reading can intervene to help them. The further you are from that, the more you're throwing a model. That human beings innocently, intelligently can learn in ways that disable their learning. And that they're not aware of it at the time that it's happening. The thing that makes this obvious, the most obvious, is to realize, to be able to start, not theoretical, not a model, not because I said so, or some guru said so, or some model came out of so-and-so, or the superintendent now legislated everybody should go to some training about it, but to actually first person get mind shame in yourself and in the people around you. That the more that happens, that's the most contagious meme in this set. Yep. And that's something every one of you can do. because it's available to your nervous system as you go through your day, and it's available for you to observe in the interactions with everybody around you. By pointing that out, right, as more people are aware of that, there's a responsibility that comes with that to yourself and to others by just recognizing that.
On the news this week, I heard about the results of a study that said that African American children and Hispanic children are suspended more from school than any other race of children.
Yep.
And it's starting now earlier. They're in pre-K and even kindergarten and first grade that they're being suspended. And I'm wondering if that has something to do with the shame
Everything
aspect
to
as
do.
well.
Everything to do.
And them acting out in school because when they can't do or told that they can't do, then they start acting out to distract or detract from the fact that they can't do it. Or don't
Yeah.
want to do it.
There's a model called the compass of shame, right? And the compass of shame, I'll just do an abbreviation of it for right now. But basically, when we feel shame, we have a series of default ways that we deal with it, none of which are very good. Now, there are cases for a higher functioning person, when they feel shame, they go, that is good. Shame is acting like a learning prompt. I'm going to get better at that. Or shame, I don't feel good about my golf swing, so I'm going to go practice it more. Or I don't feel good about my teeth being white enough, so I'm going to go bleach it more. Or on and on and on, right? Shame can be a positive motivator, right? On the one hand. On the other hand, most of the time when we feel shame, our primary instinctual response is to get out of there. We want to escape. And we escape either by denying it, and by denying it, we change the context. So this is how little kids will say, I'm stupid. I'm not smart. I'll never be good at that. Because it shuts off the shame. They've accepted something, and it's only because they have a hope or a desire to be better at it that it feels shame. So by limiting their expectations, it minimizes the shame. Another way that they do is to just flat avoid it. And most of us, before the day's out, if you're honest with yourself and you pay attention to yourself, before the day's out, you'll recognize that you avoid shame like me avoiding stepping on that plant, right? You're moving through the day, interacting with people, and things are going on, and something looms on the horizon that might cause you to feel not so good about yourself, and you almost unconsciously, automatically avoid it. We do it all the time. And then the other side of the compass of shame is anger. We get angry. And most of the kids that have behavior problems because they've transmuted the shame. And this goes for bullying and for being bullied, right? They take the shame and turn it into anger and then either express it outward or inward. Inward causes one kind of psychological problem, and outward causes the behavior problems we're talking about. There's literature up on this, right? Relative to how shame becomes anger, becomes behavior problems. So, and again, shame is not happening in a vacuum, it's happening in this respect inside the context of learning. So we're back to learning, maladaptive learning, shame. This is the heart of our psychological, physical, academic, educational issues.